dude. dude,
Yar!
dude, get out of here.
Ah!
Cheers, matey. Damn, that's
Cheers, matey.
awesome. Man, that
Ooh.
if you want to talk about someone that's like dedicated to the ecosystem, I don't think it gets any better than this. Jeez, man. This is awesome. Holy cow. I felt so bad too because a lot of people don't know last episode, which I mean was a crazy episode with the HBAR Bowl. I was supposed to have Ashe on as well, and like the invite got messed up. So you were like chilling in like some random Google Meet or
I
something.
was.
And I finished the show and you're like, I'm in the Google Meet. I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
what?
Google
I
will
felt
do
so
that.
bad.
They'll just attach a meeting to every
Oh
single
my
invite, and
God.
it's always so confusing. But it's good to be here
Oh,
now.
hell yeah. I mean, it's been, I think I've had you on the show. It's probably been years. Last time I had you on the show, I was probably still on Spaces and everything like that. But
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
for folks
I've
that,
been around since I've been around Hedera since 2021. So I think that
oh
puts
yeah,
me as an OG at this point.
you are an OG. I mean, for folks unfamiliar, you're at, Swirlds Labs, aka Hashgraph. And I mean, you've recently started this, HBARC project, which is crazy, the barking game.
Hmm.
And I mean, to kick things off, like, how are you doing, man? Like, what's new in your life?
Well, doing great, doing great. My wife just had our first kid last weekend, so it's
Congratulations, dude.
man,
The
thank
crew
you. Just
grows, the ship crew grows.
that's right. I've got a new poop deck to attend to. That's for sure. One little Barcaneer is always welcome on a board, but no, it's good. I'm getting about 3 hours of sleep here and 3 hours
Right.
of sleep there, but here we are.
Got you. Well, you're bringing the energy, man, regardless. So I love it. Now, to kick it off, I think that I'm assuming, I mean, I was joking with you before the show. Like, this is the first episode I'm streaming to LinkedIn. So we probably have like a bunch of like, like VPs or like whatever
This is a
watching
great
this.
one. This is a great one to have on LinkedIn
Yeah.
today.
It's like, they're like, who the
Ah,
fuck is this guy?
ah.
So I wanted to, maybe we'll just kind of rewind a bit and like, what is the barking game? What inspired you to build it?
Hmm.
Why build the barking game?
Yeah. So I have had a focus for about the past 12 to 18 months or so at Hashgraph, or previously Swirlds Labs, working on, most people know me for NFTs, right? But I've been asked to have a focus specifically for consumer engagement, loyalty, and rewards. And if that uses NFTs, then that's fine. If it doesn't, if it uses fungible tokens, that's fine too. Maybe it just uses the consensus service. But so my mind's been in this consumer engagement mindset for over a year now, for quite some time. And whenever I would speak to Web 2 teams specifically, my focus was more on the Web 2 side, trying to iterate and ideate with Web 2 teams to use Web 3 assets to try to expand their loyalty programs. A lot of you will remember the Starbucks Odyssey program. Okay, so that has since
Right.
been shut down, but that was kind of the evolution of this. We wanted somebody, me, to be focused on what are the successes and failures of that project, and what how much legs does this type of project have for Web 2. And so I've spoken to a lot of Web 2 companies, and I've ideated and iterated on various ideas with them, and either that they've been a bit cautious, understandably, to introduce Web3 tokens. I mean, look, even OpenSea's being sued right now, right? And so it's
Right.
still a bit risky for Web2 companies. I think they're going to get here eventually, but right now it just seems the risk reward just doesn't level out, currently for them, as far as I can tell.
Right.
Sure, we've had teams in our ecosystem and in other ecosystems launching NFT collections. Some of the big ones are in other ecosystems, Nike and Adidas and stuff like that. We've got the Doctor Who game with Reality Plus and others who are launching NFTs, and everybody knows Lithos. But back in January, February, March this year, I was a big supporter of the base ecosystem because they
Right.
were putting retail first, right? And I thought that was a very interesting perspective for them, since Coinbase is the retail centralized exchange. The base ecosystem was prioritizing retail first, and so it's like the two ends. If if I realize that retail pays the bills, I built for the retail person here, right? But if Hedera is focused on enterprise, I wanted to keep my eye as someone who just keeps up with Web3. I've been keeping up with Web3 for over a decade. I wanted to keep up with an ecosystem that was prioritizing the retail user. And in the long run, that was going to prioritize the enterprise user because
Right.
Coinbase is one of the biggest enterprises in all of crypto, right? So they would
Yeah.
know more than anyone else about enterprise adoption because they have enterprise custody products, enterprise trading products, right?
Hmm.
Institutional enterprise. I'm using those terms interchangeably. And one of the things I saw when I joined Warpcast, right, the blockchain-based social media, was this project called DGen. And that's what the barking game was modeled after. And I saw on Warpcast how much engagement and community vibe that project DGen created. And I really liked it. And I never really participated in it too much. I bought a bag, but it wasn't like where the barking game, you just buy a bag of HBAR and then you earn bark power and you can start barking.
Hmm.
It wasn't so straightforward on DGen, on Warpcast. And it depended on how much DGen token you owned, but then how active you were and how much engagement you were
Okay.
getting on Warpcast, the social media platform. So I wanted to build something like that and bring it to Twitter, which I think is a better medium for it.
Hmm.
Just because if we want to meet the
Okay, so
user where
Warpcast
they are,
wasn't on Twitter. It was kind of an insular kind of ecosystem, and with Barking Game,
yeah,
you've decided to kind of expand it.
yeah, exactly. Warpcast is its own version of like Farcaster. It's
Mm,
a web UI that runs on top of the decentralized social media platform Farcaster. And while they had, Farcaster has a lot of users, it's a fraction of the users that Twitter has. And so whenever I
gotcha.
was thinking about building the barking game, I wanted to open it up to as many people as possible so that, you could bark for anybody. And hopefully that bark would get them curious about the barking game and then curious about Hedera and then come on over as a top of funnel type uh, uh, of asset, the
Mhm.
HBAR.
Love that. That's a really good point, and I think that you hit on the why really well. I mean, you're not just somebody who's dabbling in Web3 and stuff and just retail. Like you do have also the enterprise background and looking at it through that enterprise lens too. So I think what I'm seeing with the HBARC stuff is very similar to some of the conversations we're having in the community of, learnings through the 6 years in Hedera and kind of going, it's not really a choice between enterprise and retail. It's more so retail being a stepping stone to enterprise adoption.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have both. You
Yeah,
have to have end users. You have to have B2B and B2C in Web3 space.
right.
Yeah. Um, and we see enterprises like Nike, let's take an example, right?
Mm,
Coming over and deploying at least just an NFT mint onto a chain, but they're going to deploy it where the users are, right?
right.
You're not going to deploy it. You're not going to get somebody like Nike. Sorry, my cat Noodles is trying to board the ship here. Maybe
Look
maybe he
out.
smells maybe he smells a mouse. Let me go let him in.
Yeah, yeah. Let's the more the merrier. No, that's a great point with the Nike stuff. I always joke about Hedera, kind of. Welcome to the crew, Noodles.
All right, Noodles.
Hell yeah,
Every Barcaneer needs a good first cat mate.
exactly. That's
Who's gonna
key.
who's gonna chase the mice off the ship? So
That's awesome. I was
uh,
just gonna say I joke with about Hedera sometimes in that vein of kind of like it's felt like Hedera's gone to Enterprise and been like, "Hey, let's do it," and Enterprise is like, "Hey, you
eh,
need retail," and
yeah,
Hedera goes, "But no, we want you."
yeah. If you're just building a software only like that software stack that's just completely behind the scenes and
Mm,
maybe an enterprise focus will work, right? But that's assuming that enterprises are demanding, just
mm,
it assumes that we've reached the stage in Web3 blockchain hashgraph, DLT adoption, where the use cases are so obvious that enterprises are ready to replace their databases with a
right.
distributed ledger. And we're just not there yet. And so, part of the reason I wanted to build the barking game is I wanted to show, honestly, I wanted to show my colleagues at Hashgraph and at the HBAR Foundation, like what a retail focused customer consumer community engagement project, how it could be simple and how it could be effective. Right. Yeah. What up, Coin Man? I'm afraid Noodles may have already eaten the parrot. We'll see. But the barking game, we were in development for about 3 to 4 months, and I was able to just reverse engineer how the DGen game worked, and I was able to figure out how to pull it to Twitter. I came up with the tokenomics myself, with the help of my brother.
Nice.
No Barkaneer works alone. And then the calculation for bark power is actually quite simple, but since it uses a Web2 token, it doesn't have that level of transparency. Even though I'll write the equations out and I've gone step through examples, and I can explain it to people. This is a hybrid Web2 Web3 project, and the reason that we use the Web2 token with bark power with the Web3 token HBARK is simply for user experience. We really wanted the user experience of this thing to be as good as possible. And somebody within the Mouths community reached out and they're like, "Hey, have you thought about using a Web3 token for bark power?" And while we definitely could, we would have to put so many permissions on it, and we would have to manage. We'd have to we would have to transfer that token. And then at the end of the day, if you don't use your bark power, you lose it. We'd have to burn the tokens, right? And it would just create a lot of, in my opinion, unnecessary on-chain transactions. That adds complication. It doesn't add that much cost, but adds a bunch of complication. And the end goal is not to have bark power as a Web3 asset. The end goal is to create the ability for the barking game users to surface great content and great people creating that content. And then have an incentive mechanism so that you can tip or you can bark for someone, and there's something more than just a like or a comment, right? You're actually transferring value on Twitter as a tip almost, right? As a bark that somebody can come and claim later. So it just adds a new layer of incentivization to our ecosystem.
Gotcha. And I was going to say too, I wanted to ask you kind of how it works, because I'm just going to pull it up here. I was talking about this on the show earlier about, the stuff with Accenture investing in MTech and all that kind of stuff, Carmel here. And this is a great example, is like, hey, this is great. I want to, give her some props, bark at her. So basically how it works is I've already verified with the app, but basically I go, this is awesome. Let's do 250 HBARK. Right. And then I tweet that
250 before the HBARK.
Right. Okay. See, we're learning on the go here.
Yep.
We're learning on the go here. So there we go. Boom. 250 HBARK. Now that's going to do a bunch of stuff, and it's going to do everything. So maybe it might be useful, for folks kind of just checking this out for the first time. Like, what's happening with that? How does that work?
Absolutely. So we subscribe to the Twitter API. And so we have a backend service that just runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we're looking for the $ HBARK and the hashtag HBARK as well. But, we like to key off the $, the hashtag HBARK. And we can search Twitter using Twitter API for just that hashtag, right? And so whenever we see that hashtag, we go and look at the tweet, and we do some regular expression parsing to parse out all the extra letters and words and emojis and images, and we try to distill it down to just number HBARK. And so now we know that itsbrandond barked for 250 for that user. And I can't remember that user's name, but so now we've gotten that down to the basics, and we compare that against your bark power, right? Your bark power balance. And if you have 250 or more, then we subtract 250 from your bark power balance, and we assign 250 barks or points, if you will, to that user who you bark for. At the end of the gaming season, that user can come and claim that 250, those 250 barks, which are now turned 1-to-1 into actual Web3 HBARK tokens. And then they can hold them, or they can sell them. There's going to be many gaming seasons And the rules are the same. If you have a bag of HBARC, then you get bark power to bark and play the game. I imagine that some users will want to sell their HBARC tokens. Some users will want to keep them. What I saw in DGen on Warpcast was that after the first claim window opened, and like that finally like truly legitimized the entire project, that people are like, okay, this is actually real. Like we
Right.
are going to be able to claim this HBARC one-to-one. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's very interesting. So another question for you. So obviously, I have this show. People support the show by sending HBAR to a wallet and all those different types of things. But I'm really humbled to see myself at number 6 on the HBAR on the Bark leaderboard. And basically, what you're saying is that at the end of the season, this 130,000 HBARC, I can grab an HBARC tokens, and that's effectively how creators are rewarded on the platform. They go through the season, they get that support from the community, and then they get their chest at the end of their treasure.
Yeah, exactly. They get their loot at the end.
Okay, so that's a really good example. So maybe, let's get It's Brandon D up in the charts here. Let's see if we can get in the top 3. If you're watching, throw some HBARC at the show in the comments on X, and I think it's a great way to support the show. It's so much more dynamic than just having people contribute HBARC. It's actually interactive. It's fun.
And the great thing is that whenever you bark for someone, you don't need to actually send them any HBARC. You're just telling us who and how much to allocate the next this season's treasure chest to, basically, right?
Gotcha.
It's like whenever you bark for someone, you retain all of your HBARC tokens, Hedera HTS tokens, but you're just telling us, like, whenever we open up that treasure box at the end of season 1, there's going to be a whole bunch of HBARC tokens in there. You're by playing the game, you're just telling us how much and who to distribute those to.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, someone, just a viewer here commenting, Charles joined too, obviously referring to the president of Hedera. That was funny. It's like, hey, everyone's getting, bark pilled on, the barking game. I love it.
It's barking awesome. I know. I saw the foundation is verified as well. And
oh, really?
I know I put a poll out the other day, and I know that, some people's opinions differ from others about the foundation recently.
Sure.
But my opinion is, I think it would be great for them to start barking. It would create more relevance to our retail community on X. It would give them ability to, they already do a pretty good job of retweeting stuff and commenting on projects and stuff. But
shout out to Zepsi at the foundation. I think he's behind the handle. He does a great job.
Right on. But this now, it's like we've opened up from Twitter. Why only like, comment, and retweet when you can also bark? It's like, we added 33% more functionality to Twitter by introducing the barking game.
Right on. And honestly, from that standpoint, knowing how much HBARC token the foundation could buy, they should be number 1 on the leaderboard. I mean, when you talk when you talk about really rewarding the community and creators and engagement, like, what an effective way for the foundation to do that. That'd be crazy.
That would be so sick. I mean, obviously not financial advice, guys. Make sure and read the disclaimer in the white paper. I break it all down in there. But what I noticed in DGen over in Farcaster was whenever the market cap of DGen was low, and on base, low meant like 50 million, right? I think HBARC is currently at like $250,000, right? And so we're off by like at least one magnitude here. But whenever the market cap was low over on DGen, people were barking, oh, here's 1,000, here's 2,000, here's 3,000.
Sure.
All of a sudden, that baby shot up to $1 billion market cap, and you could just give somebody a couple barks or a couple, they called them tips, right?
Right.
A couple tips, and that was a couple bucks. And this game gets really rewarding and really fun if the market cap can support it, of course. Now that means we would need a whale like a foundation or like, I mean, how cool would it be if Hedera bought, and started playing HBARC?
Yeah.
all of a sudden, the game gets a lot more rewarding, and you have a lot more power, let's say, to bark and surface and reward people. I mean, if this thing could get to a high enough market cap, Brandon, I wouldn't be surprised if your show raked in a couple $100 every show. But it's hard to do that whenever
Yeah.
there's very minimal capital. But I'm
Mm.
hoping, I'm not here pitching, hey, everybody go out and buy HBAR because it's
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
make the game funner. I'm just talking about, like, from a tokenomics and economic perspective, this is what I saw over in DGen world.
Yeah.
And people went crazy for this thing, but they really hit it right. They base rolled out, and then DGen really hit its peak in like March of this year, which was the top of the market so far. So
Right. And that makes a lot of sense, and it's been missing in the space. Like there's a transparency aspect to it. Like, again, people sending HBAR to the show, it's good to support, but maybe it's cumbersome. You got to open your wallet, you got to do a thing. And a project like HBARC, it's like similar to what you're talking about. It's like, for me, it's not even really about the token or a thing like that. It's like, oh, here's a tool similar to someone, subscribing to my profile on X or
right.
whatever. And it's just on different rails, right? It's
Yep.
or a different ship, maybe we'll call
Yep.
it. And
Yeah, there you go.
it's one of
Exactly.
it's one of those things where it's, when you strip away kind of the meme aspect to it and kind of the cartoon characters and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it actually is like an effective rail to support creators in a transparent way,
100%.
because you can visually see on the X platform who's getting rewarded and how much. And so
Who's barking
it's
for who? That's right.
exactly. So
And
it's
and
pretty
and, it,
transparent.
and anybody could go and subscribe to the Twitter API and calculate how many barks people are getting. The
Mm,
only caveat there is you guys don't yet know how much bark power people have, and if their bark was louder than their bite, right? Because there's
right.
nothing stopping me. If I only have 100 bark power, I could say, oh, here's 10,000 H bark.
Mm,
Whenever we see that, whenever we pull that in, we're only going to attribute 100 and just discard the rest of them. Now, we are building some stuff. I don't want to give too much away, but that
oh,
will,
come on. It's just us and a couple hundred of our closest friends.
a couple things we've got cooking is, if you keep up with the barking game Twitter, then you'll know that our number one requested feature is another leaderboard, but for barks given, right?
Mm,
So
okay.
there's some very active players of the barking game, that they don't create a whole lot of content to get barked for, but they do a lot of barking. They love
Right.
the project, and they've got a lot of H bark. They earn a ton of bark power every day, and they do a lot of barking. And so I want to recognize those people, because they are just as important as the people who are receiving the barks, right?
Right.
The other thing I'm trying to build right now, is a little calculator that anybody can use. I want to put it on our website, that you can go and put someone's Twitter handle in, and it will actually tell you how much bark power they received today, how much they've spent, how much they have remaining. So you
Right.
can go see, whenever somebody barks for you, you can go see if they actually have the bark power to back up that bark. Say that 10 times fast.
But no, it got you. That makes sense. And I mean, what we're touching on here as well is like, this is a new project. It's getting started. There are obstacles and challenges and pitfalls to navigate. There's more to come. I think
Yep.
one of the big conversations I've seen about the barking game right now is just the concept of like gaming the system and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's been suspected that maybe there's accounts out there or something that are using Twitter bots and this and that to kind of
Mm-hmm.
game the system and all these different types of things.
Yeah.
I can't see something like that not happening for,
Yeah, for sure.
for a platform
I mean,
like
this
this.
is
So
Web3. This is Web3.
exactly. Right. So on that front, like when we're talking about real dollars and cents being thrown into the pot for a game like this and someone taking advantage of it, like as a builder, like how do you navigate that? Like
Yeah.
obviously other similar projects have had to deal with it. How are you kind of navigating it?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it is the hot question of the day, within
Well, I
the
mean, you're
barking
on the
game
Hashgraph
ecosystem.
Enthusiast show.
Yeah, so we anticipated bark farming, right? And I
Hmm.
learned this. Thankfully, I got to learn about this with DGen, and DGen banned a lot of people who were
Oh,
suspected of farming DGen tips. We have not gone there yet, but if you read our white paper and read our terms of service, we do have sections in there that say, if you're suspected of bark farming, and of course, it's not going to be a first time suspicion, but we do have the ability to ban your account. We can't do anything with your HBAR tokens, of course, that you have
Sure.
in your
Yeah.
Hedera wallet, because they're completely permissionless. There's no keys on that token ID at all. But since Bark Power is a Web2 token, we could take measures if we wanted to. Now, we have
Sure.
not. But what have we done? Well, so let's talk about bark farm. What is bark farming? Well, we have instituted where when we scrape for barks, you can't bark for yourself. We just throw that away, right?
Sure.
If we see that the barker and the receiver are the same, we just throw that away. What you can do, and what it looks like somebody may be doing, I want to walk a fine line here, right? Because this person is playing by the current rules of the game. Is you can bark for the same account every single day if you want to, and you can give them all of your bark if you want to. This is no different than let's say let's say that Brandon really loves HBAR bull, right? And he buys a big bag of HBAR, and he wants to reward the HBAR bull every single day because he thinks he's undervalued and he wants to keep him in our community, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
What would we have a problem if Brandon bought a huge bag, millions and millions of HBAR that got him just tons of bark power every day, and bark for Brandon? Yeah, I bark
every day,
every single day, right? We'd probably be okay with that, right? Because the person who buys the HBAR does buy the right to bark for whomever they want to. Yeah. And so I think it's important that we have our eye on this, and we anticipated this, but being number one on our leaderboard just means that either you figured out how to play the game or that you are getting a lot of support from the community. Sure. But we're only in our 4th week right now, right? And we have multiple seasons. I mean, the barking game is going to go on for quite some time. Yeah. And you can even see that we have adjusted the LP rewards, which we're giving 3x bark power. We have still are giving 3x bark power, but we have adjusted the HODL rewards now to try to redirect some of that bark power back into the hands of the passive holder, somebody who doesn't know or feel comfortable LP.
It's fine tuning things as the project goes along. Yeah,
it's like a real video game where you have to send out patches to update and tweak your economy, right?
Yeah, because like some weapons are imbalanced or this and that,
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah, so that's what we've done. There's other ideas that we have around possibly quadratic barking, where if you get barks from a lot of accounts, it counts for more than if you get just one bark from one big account.
Gotcha.
But we're not going to change any big rules of the barking game within a season. I really do want you to sign into a season of the barking game and know what you're going to get for the most part. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so I think that's just the challenge with Web3. Like, what we're talking about is rewarding creators, is community members being able to reward creators and transfer value to them. And in Web 2, it's you put your credit card into X and then you subscribe to someone's profile and there you go. But the beauty of Web 3, it's just decentralized and it creates new opportunities, like we were talking about how easy this is. But then you have new challenges where it's like, is this actual real people or what's going on? So it's good to know that kind of like you have experience dealing with stuff like this. You have a plan for it. And it's just, I think it's just the nature of a new project going into uncharted, into new, I got to start using better analogies, into new seas. We're going into new seas. Yeah, that's right. Now, right.
We're trying to find the calm seas.
Uncharted waters.
And there you go. Uncharted waters. Right. Yeah. But I like that you can look at it as like a subscription. If somebody buys a bag of HBAR and they want to use that to subscribe to someone, then that's effectively what they're doing. They're spending their bark power to reward that creator every day. And look, we may think that creator deserves that much bark power, and we may not think that creator deserves that much bark power. But the way to kind of level that and put your people up at the top of the leaderboard, right, is you got to play the game. And you got to either LP, you got to HODL HBAR, and that's going to give you the bark power, which gives you the influence, right, and a bigger share of the influence. But this is the game as it is right now. And a lot of people have been DMing me about this, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
and I'm iterating through ideas with a whole bunch of people. But if anyone listening, and including you, Brandon, if you have any ideas on how can we make the barking game more fair, right? To reward the people
Right.
who are creating the content, who are doing the stuff, we're all ears. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. And then, so one of the last questions I want to ask you is kind of, so when we talk about this game and kind of how far it's come and just the feedback from the community, obviously, you have a bigger vision for this, probably a lot of it you can't share, but what's the goal of this project? Is it a part of something bigger? Those kinds, I'm curious to know kind of where you see this going and kind of what your plans are for it.
Yeah, where I would really like to see this is using the barking game as a jumping off point for both Web 2 and Web 3 companies. I'd like to see partnerships come in. We're just starting to scratch the surface on how people can utilize the barking game to create community engagement and give rewards, right?
Yeah.
We got to think of this as just another feature of X or of Twitter. Like, comment, subscribe, bark, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, why would you just like when you could bark, right? Barking is the new like. And this came to me because whenever in my time at NFTs at Hedera, it was one of the phrases that I like to use was the NFT mint is the quantifiable social media like,
Mm.
right? It's one thing to go and just like someone's comment. And I saw this on Workcast as well. It's one thing to go and just like someone's comment. I mean, okay, cool. I mean, that's great. It's going to tell the algorithm that this post is a little bit more important and people are liking it and they're engaging with it. But if you mint someone's NFT, right, you're objectively caring about that more because you're paying that on-chain transaction and you're associating yourself with that NFT,
Yeah.
with that creator. And then you have that NFT in your account so that creator has some sort of means to get in touch with you or at least identify you in the future, right? This is marketing. Now, I'm an engineer, right?
Right.
I'm an engineer. I'm not a marketer, but with Barks, we want to do the same thing. And I guess I'll spill just a little bit of alpha here. Once we get the Who's Barking leaderboard built, all right, that's our current goal.
Mm.
What I really want to do is to create a barking game social graph. Because right now, one of the big missing parts of the barking game is knowing who has barked for me, specifically for me, and what posts, what tweets have they barked for, how much have they barked, etc. Because let's
Right.
say if I'm a brand or I'm a content creator, it's one thing to know how much barks just I've gotten from everyone, but I also want to see who's loyal so that I can reward them in the future, right? If I see that 32% of all of my barks are coming from this account, that that's a great person in my ecosystem. That's a great listener of my show. That's someone who consumes my content or engages with me. And I want to know that. And I want to know, just like in the Web 2 world, where you want to know what your click-through rates are and stuff like this. I want to know if I put a post up,
Mm.
how many barks did this post get? Right. Okay. My audience likes that type of content. And so that's the bigger picture of this.
Right. Insights. It's similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's similar to like Twitter analytics, YouTube analytics. It helps a creator not only get rewarded for what they're doing, but have analytics based off of metrics that are backed by like humans. Like that's another aspect that's cool about HBAR because it's not this kind of mindless subscription or automated type thing. It literally takes someone their own action and time to bark at you. So those metrics and stuff might hold a little more weight when it comes to a creator figuring out what works and what doesn't
It's just a
work.
new feedback mechanism, right?
Yeah.
It's a new feedback mechanism, and it does extend the functionality of Twitter because
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
I'm building a list, right? Just like you can have a free to mint NFT collection and you can see who claims that and you can build a list that way. And that's where we started. If you remember back in like April and May, right? That's where the
Yeah.
barking game started. I
Right.
created
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Barcaneers NFT and my wife created the Scallywag Squawkers, and we just gave those away for free
Yeah.
to try to build some momentum and some engagement. The next step I think is actual like value transfer, which what barks do. So it's
Yeah.
like, comment, subscribe, bark.
And what you're saying is at the end of this first season, that's when people might have the light bulb moment of like,
Yeah.
oh wow, a bunch of value is just distributed. This is
Right. Yeah.
real. You know,
Yeah. Exactly.
the feedback loop will be complete at that point.
Yeah, the entire loop will be complete at that point. And, I mean,
Mm,
fingers crossed, let's hope for a bullish unlock because,
yeah,
after each season, we do introduce more supply,
sure.
right? So
Yeah.
there is a chance that people will find that and they'll just cash it out because they don't care, right? But I think what I saw in DGen for a couple seasons was that once people saw like, okay, this is actually legit and we are going to get paid out one-to-one HBAR,
Mm.
it really it solidified the project.
Yeah. And that same argument could be made for a project like karate, right? It's like, oh, you got people betting on their fighters
Yep.
and then they get a bunch of tokens. Nobody loses any tokens. You have a bunch more
Right.
in supply. They've been okay. So I think that I think that this dynamic kind of works. That like
Mm.
once the feedback loop is completed and folks have a positive experience, I don't think their first thought's going to be like, well, I'm out now. It's like
Right.
hopefully
Right.
it's like,
Yeah.
hey, this is cool. Season two,
And
like
this
what's going
works and
on?
I got paid
Yeah.
out and like let's go, what's season two going to
Right.
have? Yeah.
Right. I dig
Yeah.
it. And when does season one end? What's the date?
Season one's going to end at the end of September, so we got a
Gotcha.
couple more weeks. Yeah,
Gotcha.
we are midway through our fourth week of since launch and through season one right now.
So
So I'm
season is 2 months or whatever?
well, we define the season length, and I
Oh,
define the
okay.
season length, and I define how much HBARC is available in that season. So
Gotcha.
I think season one had max 15 million HBARC
Okay.
available in it, and I can use that number to derive how much bark power is available each day. Because remember,
Right.
there you have, let's say you have 15 million HBARC in season one. Divide that by the number of days in season one.
Yeah.
That's how many HBARC tokens can be allocated each day. All
Right.
right. Since one HBARC equals one bark power, that also means how much bark power is available each day to
Right.
distribute. Okay. So we can't give more than, so when we're giving out bark power, it's a set amount of bark power every
Mm,
day distributed amongst all the players of the game.
gotcha.
So if in order to increase your influence and decrease someone else's influence, you will buy more HBARC, right?
Got
Because
you.
now you're telling our system like, hey, I'm committed to this. I'm putting my capital in this project and I want to have more influence.
Okay, so it's not just the amount, the number, it's the ratio, the how big is your
Yeah,
slice of the pie for the season? Gotcha.
exactly. That's right. Yeah. How big is your
Gotcha.
slice of pie for the day in the season? Because remember, we recalculate that slice of the pie every single day. And that's why you
Right.
get a refill every day because we have to stay up to
Gotcha.
date. So we on a 24-hour timer.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, last thing I wanted to bring up, just a subject, just because I'm really interested in just kind of touching on it with you is, um, I think it's, an understatement to say that the last few months in the ecosystem have been energetic.
To say the least.
Yeah. And of course, we've got retail pays the bills. We've got all sorts of different conversations around leadership and marketing. It was like weeks ago, I was like outside in front of my house screaming into my phone about like marketing is bad. And so it's like all of that. I mean, we don't really have to really, touch on it too much because we both kind of know exactly what, I think everyone
Mhm.
knows exactly what we're talking about. But in regards to that kind of stuff, like where's your head at with things when we look at, the next month's year
Mhm.
of Hedera, where we're at, what we've
Yeah.
learned, some of that controversy.
Yeah. Well, I'll start off with a small plug. I feel like I've created a marketer's dream tool
Mm,
here, right? Now that said, I have not had anyone from the Hashgraph from Hedera or from the foundation reach out to me and ask how to get started. I hear there's people interested, but
really?
this is available. Yeah, I know. I think this is like the best marketing
Guys, I
tool in
swear,
all of
now that I'm
Hedera
here,
right now.
one sec. Now that I'm streaming to LinkedIn, for God's sake, if anyone from these organizations is watching the show on the godforsaken platform, LinkedIn, please, like, start using this thing. Like we've got like a great like engagement marketing type thing. If you shut me up, like start using this thing for God's sake. But anyways,
I mean, I've had good feedback from some people
nice.
in the marketing teams, but and maybe they're slower to move. Thankfully, I built this in my spare time, and I've got some co-founders that did a lot of the development work for me. But the great thing is that we retail, we get to use this as a marketing tool,
Yes.
and maybe the organizations will come over in due time. But I think, just coming back to your question, I think that if I was, I'm an engineer, I'm an entrepreneur, right? I'm a builder. I'm not a marketer. I just happen to know a little bit about marketing because it's been required for me to try to create success for my projects, right? But I would really take a step back, and I don't have any insights on our marketing team. I don't even talk to that team
Sure.
from any of our organizations, right? Just very sparingly. Just my time in Web3. I come from the old school of crypto. I can remember when it was really only Tether and Litecoin other than Bitcoin, right? This is before the Ethereum mainnet launch. And during my days, I was very active. I was the itsbrandond of the EOS ecosystem. I had EOS
Wow.
radio, right? I
Crazy.
had, I created shows and content every week. And one of the ideas there was, enterprise is right around the corner. Enterprise is right around the corner. And when I joined Block One, the creators of EOS, basically, the Hashgraph of the EOS world, if you will, we maintained the layer one. We had an entire department that was focused on enterprise solutions, right? With private EOS blockchains, not too different than the private Hashgraphs that we're currently talking about.
Gotcha.
But enterprises move very slowly. And we were way too early in 2019, 2020 during my tenure at Block One. And you have to look at where are the users right now. And in our heads, if we want to focus on, we can get Web 2 companies over here and we can onboard their entire user base. If that's working, then let's keep on that. If it's not working as well as we want, we need to pivot our focus a bit, not abandon, but expand. And we need to expand to where are the users, where is the excitement? Because I think one thing, since I've been around for so long, I have my perspective is not just Hedera, right?
Sure.
And
yeah.
It's like what I want is, and I think what a brand wants is try to get as many ambassadors as you can.
Yes.
And as we've seen with the governing council, they are not ambassadors of Hedera for the most part. They're not going around every day posting the greatness of Hedera, right? And talking about all the exciting things that are going on chain and that are happening in our ecosystem. Who is doing that? Well, retail is, right?
Yeah.
Retail's doing that. The end user's doing that. And so if you want to have this basically free army of ambassadors, think the Link Marines, right? Back in the 2021 cycle of Chainlink, right? If you want that just relentless, aggressive type of Hedera's the best, look at all the amazing things we're doing, that's going to come from the retail space and only the retail space.
Yeah.
That's not going to come from IBM, right?
Sure.
I think IBM can do some great things on chain. All right. I haven't seen a whole lot yet, but they have the resources, they have the team, they have the technology, they've got the talent. But for now, it's like, go where your users are. And which is exactly why I built the barking game on Twitter, right? I didn't go and build it on Warpcast because the Hedera user is not on Warpcast. The base user is on Warpcast.
Gotcha.
But go where the energy is and harness that energy where and when and how you can.
And I guess kind of where people's heads are at, because I think you and I, definitely, I think a lot of people in this community are on the same page in regards to what challenges the ecosystem faces, mistakes that have been made, pathways forward. I think when we really ingest that, it paints an optimistic picture of hey, Hedera has a chance to really try a new approach to problems that a lot of other networks have faced and failed at. And so there's a lot of learnings there. But something I wanted to touch on here was like, when we look at the future for Hedera and kind of what these approaches are, from your perspective, like, do you agree with kind of what people are talking about? Like, we need to enhance native staking. We need to, to your point with the governing council, like we need to minimize how important the governing council is. We need to, break out of our silos. We need to invest more in native projects versus bringing people from the outside in, like those kind of conversations that are happening. Do you mostly agree with that kind of stuff, or do you kind of have some opinions that might veer off a little bit from the general consensus?
I don't want to pretend that I create strategy. I'm not in a strategic role at Hedera. Yeah. I'm in quite a small role on the developer advocacy and product team. I don't have a fund. I don't have any money to support things. I built the barking game, just in my free time on my own.
Yeah, I'm more asking to the community member, Captain H Bark.
Oh yeah. I think I'll argue it from two sides. The first side is, one theory is there's a whole lot of things that Hedera doesn't have that could be prescribed to creating success for other ecosystems. Things like lending protocols, things like oracles and stuff like that, right? These are things that you need if you're going to have a healthy and vibrant decentralized economy, right? And Hedera's getting those, but it's taken quite some time, right? And so I think if I was in a strategic position at Hedera, I would really want to step back and, from first principles, like think about what is our identity and who are we trying to be an ecosystem for? Because one of the things I identified very early in Hedera is a lack of, when I started in 2021, and there was essentially a lack of any smart contracts.
Sure.
Right. Who needs a smart contract? Well, a decentralized community, a decentralized economy that don't know each other needs smart contracts, because it can remove and lessen trust in the system. Hedera wasn't built that way. Hedera was built utilizing not smart contracts, but back-end code to manage tokens and stuff like that,
right,
which inherently means there is more trust in the system, right? And so Hedera was not created to be, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, doesn't represent any opinions of Hashgraph, wasn't created to truly be a decentralized, trustless ecosystem, because you have to trust builders running code on their own back ends that they have full permission over, right?
Right.
You guys have to trust that I am calculating the barks correctly, right?
Right.
But once that HBARC token is in your wallet, I don't have any permission on it, right? But it's not like now with the EVM, this whole changes. But we're playing such catch up in the true trustless, decentralized economy that Hedera, in my opinion, and Charles really need to think about, like, what is our current position as a decentralized ecosystem, as a decentralized economy. I want to use the word economy here, right? And who are the leaders, and why are they leaders? Specifically based in Solana, in my opinion. And what is our likelihood of being able to compete with them? Is there still a window of opportunity, which I think there is. I still think crypto is very young. And what is it going to take to build that type of decentralized, trustless ecosystem, right? And if they don't think that there's an opportunity, then this enterprise focus should be the focus, because you can't forever spend HBARs to try to compete in everything. I've thought for some time that Hedera is in a bit of an identity crisis. And maybe crisis is a bit too strong here, but in an opportunity to re-identify, because you can't be everything for everyone, right? Look at Solana. they were specifically tailored to the degenerate retail user, and they
Right.
give a strong focus on good UX and beautiful UIs, right? And that's going to attract that type of user,
Hmm.
right? Base is doing something similar, but of course with the backing of the juggernaut Coinbase. If Hedera is going to continue to try to gain a capture a larger slice of that pie, either from the retail side or from the institution side, the enterprise side, I don't know what that plan is, right? And I don't know where that's weighted. Is this 90% institution or enterprise and 10% retail? Is it 99-1? Is it 50-50?
Right.
I'm not in that strategic role. I have no influence over our marketing strategy or anything. But what I do have influence over is building tools that I think move us in the right direction, right? And that's why I built the barking game. So,
I love that. Yeah, it's basically show don't tell, you know. So
yeah, show don't tell.
yeah, I love that. And
Exactly.
I think you raise a good point. It's like on one hand, you could argue that Hedera has a lot of missing pieces that it needs. But Hedera is also the missing piece for a lot of other networks, right? It's talked
Absolutely.
about quite a few times, like, oh, maybe Solana needs more accurate time tracking. It's like, boom,
Yep.
HCS, plug your app in. So Hedera can return. It's a combination of, like you're saying, like thinking forward, working through what this new identity, what the future looks like, but also kind of returning to the past and go, well, the inventor Lehman Baird framed it as a trust layer of the internet. So we've learned that there's a lot of networks out there that are very powerful and successful that are going to start to hit those bumps when it comes to trust. And can Hedera be a trust layer for Web3 networks as well, and expand outwards? Like, it's not just about what exciting products, whether it be in the form of bridges or dexes or borrowing or whatever it is, oracles or whatever. Not only what impressive products can we import into our ecosystem, but what impressive products and companies can we incubate inside of our ecosystem and
Yes,
export
exactly.
outwards to other
Absolutely.
ecosystems.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just because another ecosystem has 5 different Oracle solutions doesn't mean that Hedera needs 5 different Oracle solutions,
Right.
right? We need to realize where we are in the whole scheme of things and where we have the best opportunity to win. Yeah, the best
Right.
opportunity to win because, look, I see the tweets that talk about, oh, Hedera has increased the supply of circulating HBAR by this
Right.
much
Yeah.
and this much, right? I see those tweets and yeah, I mean, it's a real thing, right? But at some point, you really have to figure out like who really are we, and how much is it EVM based? How much is it HTS based? How much
Hmm.
of it is HCS based? Right? And like, where are our strengths, and where can we compete the best? Where's our edge? Right? Like my brother's a
Yeah.
trader, and I hear him talk about like what his edge is. Like, I don't have an edge in investing. I have an edge in building. So that's why I like to build
Sure.
things. Right? But don't be where your edge isn't unless you're willing to put an enormous amount of capital and energy
Right.
to create an edge in that space. Yeah. And I
Gotcha.
don't I don't have the solutions right now. I've got some ideas. I probably shouldn't share any of those ideas on
Yeah.
the show here. But yeah, I've put blood, sweat, and tears into Hedera since 2021. The NFT SDK and all I know the NFTs aren't all the rage right now, but NFTs are a fundamental asset of the digital world, right?
Yeah.
They're a pillar of
They're not just
property.
monkey JPEGs anymore.
Yeah, they are a pillar of property in the digital world. And that's why I did earlier in Q1 this year. I released NFT Toolkit.app and the NFT SDK. And I know Mintbar.xyz is down right now. We're waiting on grant funding to come through to get
Gotcha.
Mintbar back up. But yeah, I really, since I don't have a whole lot of influence over, I'm not a big wig, right?
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
You got a big hat.
Yeah, I got a big hat, but I don't have a big wig. I mean, look, I'm almost going bald here, so I don't have a big wig, that's for sure. Um, but what I can do is what I know best, and that's build for the end user and try to build something that's fun, simple, and gets used. And I hope that that's what the Barking game has done for our community. And I have seen, I'm not going to take credit for this, but I have seen since the Barking game launched, The vibes have gotten a lot better. You know, it's
Yeah.
my goal was to create a positive feedback loop for our ecosystem.
Yeah, I honestly, I wouldn't. I think it'd be hard to argue that the barking game hasn't had a positive vibe impact. I've been feeling that too, and just maybe kind of touching on what you mentioned there as well. The theme that I get, the sentiment I get from people is it's not just about how much stuff do we have in the ecosystem, how much tooling do we have. It's what's the full picture? Is it integrated? Is it easy for someone to come in and
Right.
just move through the ecosystem? Does it matter if we have 5 bridges or one? It's like,
Mm.
how do things interact with each other? Is this ecosystem greater than the sum of its parts? And that's the
Yep.
kind of secret sauce I think that Solana figured out, a few other
Yep.
ecosystems figured out and saw success from. And so I agree that's a good strategy for Hedera right now. Is maybe it's no longer the time to really start throwing stuff at the wall and go, well, we're 6 years into this experiment and we've got a ton of dynamite projects and startups that have formed inside of this ecosystem.
Hmm.
How can we export those outwards? How can
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
utilize those?
Yeah. It's like, do you want to have a shotgun approach or do you want to have more
Yeah.
of a rifle approach? You know, how precise do you want to be? Like, if you're really focused and really have strong conviction on what you want to fund and where you want to go, like the sniper approach is better. If you're not so sure, then the shotgun approach is better
Sure.
because it's more of a spray and let's see what's successful. Again, I'm more on the technical side of things. I
Yeah.
get brought in to analyze, you know, architecture and tokenomics and stuff like that. But um, I'm
I
sure
think
it's a
as
difficult
I
role.
think as someone building this network, using the tools in this network, being in the community, I think it really gives you an authority on these topics. I mean, sure, you can have a marketing background or whatever that is, but what it really comes down to is like, do you understand the community?
Yeah.
And you do. So I think that your thoughts on that is great. The community had a couple questions. One was
Sure.
from Coinman. He's like, can HBAR go multi-platform in the future?
Yeah, it could. I think any platform where we can search for the hashtag, we could go multi-platform.
Dig it.
So you know with YouTube it would be difficult because we need to have one place that we can go and look for all the barks. Yeah.
Gotcha. Also, too, kind of random. Christian Hasker, also from previously Swirlds Labs. How much funding is needed for Mint Bar?
Yeah, that's a great
Christian,
question.
write the check to PO Box.
Yeah. PO Box SS Captain Jack. I actually don't know. You know, we have it's a good question. We have a firewall between the foundation and Swirl's Hashgraph, where
Gotcha.
I don't know what the numbers are for anything. I just know that it
Gotcha.
needs funding.
Yeah, let's see if we can get it funding. And then also, this is an last one from Paul. This is interesting. Um, what's the definition of retail? I think there is some confusion in the, especially in the Hedera ecosystem around like what is retail? Like, is it just crazy degen people? Could you put a startup under the retail umbrella? Like, how would you define that?
Yeah, for me, retail is end user. So
Gotcha.
an end user, anybody who is opening up their wallet and doing stuff on chain.
Gotcha. This the C side of B2C. It's like if
Yeah, the
it's
C side of B2C. Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, that's a great way to define it. Well, Captain Jack HBAR, it's been a an awesome conversation. I wanted to give you the final word and see if you had anything to anything else to plug or kind of how people can get involved with the game and everything like that.
You know, just follow us on Twitter at the Barking Game. Check out our website, hbark.club. And I think thebarkinggame.com now works. I was able
Nice.
to acquire that one. But if you want to play the game, just know that there may be people farming and stuff like this. We're keeping our eye on things. But the goal of the game, if you're aligned with what our goal is, which is to reward good actions, community engagement, people doing amazing things, we can do this together, right? We don't need $1 million budgets. We don't need million HBAR strategies, right? We can do this just with the HBARK token. You can bark for anybody you want to, for any reason you want to right now, inside the Hedera community or out. Reward our own and try to pull in other people. And that's really the power of the barking game.
Dig it. Yeah, it'd be crazy to see some people barking at each other on LinkedIn. That'd be like a wild thing.
Somebody take a look on LinkedIn if you
Yeah.
can search by hashtag and send me a message
Yeah.
on Twitter, because again, any platform where we can search by hashtag and just get a list of all here. Actually, let me send before we go here, Brandon. Let me send the chat a link so that
Yeah.
you can see. Oh, that's just in the studio.
Yeah. Yeah. No
This
worries. I'll pull this up.
Yeah, this is basically where we search, where we fetch using the Twitter API to get all the barks,
Gotcha.
right?
Okay. Gotcha.
So
So
you
you're
can just
you're
see every single person barking, and you always want to click on latest there. But
yeah.
these
Yeah.
are all the people barking right now. So every 5 minutes,
Yeah.
our back end goes out and just pulls by timestamp, just pulls all of these barks, and then we process them in our back end. And then 5 more minutes, we go back out and we know what timestamp we left off at, and we go and we fetch all the barks again, and bang bang.
Someone gave me 88 quintillion H bark.
Yeah,
So
I'm not. Seeing that that's a multiple times more than HBARC exists, I'm not sure that you're going to get all those, but
hey,
hey,
we're
you
number
never
one
know.
in any minute. Right on. Well, Ash, I really appreciate it, man. Appreciate you stopping by, and
Yeah,
congrats on the new baby
thank
and
you.
everything. It's so exciting, man. Really a
Yeah,
pleasure to have you.
lesson learned: don't launch a new product the week before your wife is going to give birth to your first child.
You're launching a project on hard mode.
Yeah, it's truly on hard mode.
Right on. Well, take care, man. Really
All right,
appreciate
yeah.
it.
Thank you so much, Brandon. I'll see everyone barking on Twitter.
Hell yeah. Cheers. Right on. Well, I mean, great stuff from Ash. Like, really, really, really great to have that guy on the show. It's been too long. And yeah, I mean, whatever you think of it, right? It's a meme dog cartoon, degen NFT thing or whatever. At the end of the day, as you can tell, I get excited about it as a creator because, I don't get paid to do this show. It takes me, a lot of time to do it. I spend a lot of my own money on it. But it's possible because people send HBAR, right, to a wallet 0.0.1725506, and they send HBAR and I sell it. And I can buy stuff for the show, like the microphone and the setup and the StreamYard subscription and like all that kind of stuff. So it makes it possible. But I get excited about something like HBARC because it's just a new flavor. It's a more engaging way to do it. It's easier. So I dig it. So I think that's why it's important, and sure, again, it's a meme, it's degen, it's this, it's that. It's driving value on the network. People are creators that are putting a lot of hard work in spreading the good word about HBAR, are going to make some money. It's really, really hard to find something wrong with that, to be honest.